Guys, Jade's here. Jade and I have taught together. We are amigas for real. So we're gonna have to try and keep it professional. But Jade is here to join us as our target language panelist, and I am so excited to have her here with you to share all of her wisdom on target language.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited. Are you excited?
I'm excited.
So, yeah. So, Jade, tell us all about your journey as a teacher and where you're at with target language this year.
So this is my 7th year teaching, and in my first 5 years, I was the grammar queen. So
Mm-hmm.
conjugation of verbs, fill in the blank, like all that, memorize vocabulary list because that's how I was taught. So that's what I knew, and that's what I did. So um, I've gotten really involved in the Instagram community. So I've been seeing like, oh, CI, comprehensible input. So last year was my first time giving it a try. It's a little struggle bus, but I figured,
Yeah.
well, I'm still figuring it out every day. I'm trying new stuff. This is my 2nd year and I am loving it. The results are ridiculous. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
they are ridiculous. Yeah. So, Jade and I were, of course, riding that grammar queen struggle bus together when we were teaching together in good old South Kakalaki. But now you left me. You're in North Kakalaki.
Oh yeah. I don't even know if that's a thing. Do they say that about North Carolina?
I don't know, but they should.
I
'Cause it's my
haven't been here
favorite.
long enough to know.
But Jade is famous, at least in my eyes, for the amazing way that she sets up her first week. Like when I ask her, I'm like, so what are you doing? And like, I saw this great post that you had. Like, what are you doing for this week to set up your first week? She has an amazing structure to exactly how she sets up students for success in close to 90% target language. And I know that one of the struggle points that I have as like a newer person to CI as well is how do I make sure, like, this is the stuff that like keeps me up at night, like the week before school. It's like I don't have as much like the new teacher jitters when it comes to like, is my room set up? Like honestly, I
Yeah,
don't
like
care if my posters are falling off the
oh,
wall anymore. Like I already know they're gonna fall off the wall because of the AC. I'm not even worried about that anymore. I already have accepted that. I'm worried about like, how are my students going to not hate me for making them use target language? And I know that you have such a good lesson plan for this already set up. So walk us through, how do you set them up for this?
okay. So if I were a student and my teacher told me the first day that she was going to speak all in Spanish, like 90% in Spanish, I'd freak out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So my strategy is to make them as comfortable as possible. And I make them as comfortable as possible by showing them how many words they can pick out in Spanish and comprehend on their own. So my first day or two, depending on how my students are feeling, is with cognates. Like cognate heavy for the first 2 days. Like all activities are with cognates. We're playing games. We're doing sorts. Um, I'm reading to them in Spanish. Making sure they understand like what things are, pointing to pictures, and then well, I say cognates are the first 2 days, but it's really that whole first week and still now. Like I use cognates all the time. I try to use as many cognates as possible because if they can see a resemblance to the Spanish word and the English word, that's something that I don't have to explicitly say, okay, this means frog.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm using a lot of cognates, and that first week also I start my Super 7 unit, which helps progress things along. They can understand more sentences and more phrases, and they can answer more questions about themselves. So that first week I start that Super 7, Super Siete, and I do one verb a day.
That's genius. Because I know one of the first mistakes that I made last year is that I tried to do like 3 or 4 a day because I was like, you got this. You're fine. You're fine. You got this.
The stress.
The stress.
So one one verb a day, and I have them listen to me say sentences, or like it's just simple stuff. Like I have a presentations that I made for each one of the verbs, and I have images that have the cognate vocabulary at the bottom. So if I have a picture of a pineapple and I say es una piña, and I introduce all of them, es un elefante, es un autobús, and then I go through and I ask them questions like pointing to the elephant, es una piña? No, es una. Mi mamá me está llamando. Okay. So I just go through things to make sure that they understand and they're comprehending. They're listening to me in Spanish, and my screen moved. So we do also writing practice a little, since they only know like the cognate words, and then S, they can still practice writing things out. So I have in that presentation set, I have some practice worksheets that are reading comprehension based kind of. So like more comprehension based. So you have images, and I'm like, okay, ¿qué es? And they have to write es un elefante. Really short sentences, but it gets them into writing a little bit in Spanish and showing them how they can do it.
Beautiful. And for people who might not know, can you walk us through like what is Los Super Siete? Like where can people find that? Where's that idea?
Los Super Siete is Los Super Siete is 7 verbs, 7 high frequency verbs that students are going to see a lot in Spanish. So like is, has, likes, wants, another is, and then goes, and then there is, there are. So those 7 verbs, they're going to see in tons of sentences. And if they know those 7, then they can pick through and figure out what everything else is around it. With the help of those Super 7 and then cognates, they should be able to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And these ideas are something that's going to help people read almost anything in at least the present tense that they'll see for at least the first few weeks of class. So I start with a high frequency unit 2, and I use that list that comes from Mike Pito for the Super 7. He's got another one for the Super 16 that I plan to use later. And it really is, it works so well. It's such a game changer in terms of how much language you really can start off the bat with using. And you can even kind of move into some of those past tense structures with them too.
Yes. So like, kudos to Terry Waltz for when she came up with the Super Siete. It's so helpful for teachers and students, because even like you said, with the present tense, they can understand all those present tenses, but with the past tenses, they look very similar. So you can still like kind of figure out like, tiene, tenía, like I know it's not she has, but you practice with had, and they tuvo, like they look similar. So
they all work together.
Yeah, they always do.
I think that it's genius to use the cognates, because I think they really are such a secret weapon that we as language teachers, we forget how powerful those are for students, because they're really empowering. Looking at a word and being like elefante, like, oh duh, I know what that is.
Yeah.
Like,
or autobús.
Right. Yeah. Like you can use it. You can use it to figure out this brand new word that looks like a bunch of squiggles, but don't worry, you'll figure it out.
Exactly. Or like gradually working in new vocabulary with a cognate heavy text. So like when you want to teach height, you can talk about age, because you've already talked about age with the Super Siete, and you've already introduced yourself, and then you can just like él es alto or él es bajo, like gestures, work stuff in, new stuff in, the things that they already know.
Oh, so good. So when you are working with these verb structures, what are some of the activities that you use with you? You talked a lot about your writing practice. How do you do speaking?
Okay, so Um, uh, I'm using special person interviews this year.
The best.
Yes, they are. Special person interviews by Bryce Hedstrom. Check out his blog because that's where I went to figure out how he did it because he created them. But the special person interviews, I started a little bit last year, kind of towards the end of the year. And this year, I'm doing it like a lot. So I have a presentation because I can't draw. So I have a presentation with pictures to help my students make connections to what I'm trying to ask them. So I don't have to explicitly say, I'm asking you, do you want ice cream? Because they have a picture of ice cream and they already know quieres. So quieres helado. And then I also have the support structures for what they use to respond. So I have yo quiero, and then I have ella quiere.
Mm-hmm.
So I ask a couple students before I turn them loose, and I'm like, hablen con su pareja. And they talk to their partner and they ask the question. And after that, I ask a student about their partner. So it's like, okay, Tania quiere helado? Sí, ella quiere helado. Oh, no, no quiere helado. So they get the yo, and then they also get to use the he, she. Sometimes I just turn them loose and I print the cards out. So I print the presentation 4x4 landscape on paper and put them on a binder ring. And I just let them flip and ask the questions that they want to. And they really like it. Shocked. I thought, like, because teachers don't like giving kids speaking activities. Well, for me, for sure, because I'm like, they're not going to speak in Spanish the whole time. Like, like that fear, that trust to stay in the target language, but they're doing it because I think they think it's fun and they're practicing. It's funny, like trying to get it, and that's fine, but it's been great.
Yeah. Well, I remember when after I went to a conference with Bryce Hedstrom where he talked a lot about special person interviews, and I was, of course, like that butt in the front row of the conference who was like, I'm doing it already and I love it. And everybody just turned around like, this girl, you know exactly what you're like. And I was, of course, like fumbling through it. Like, that's what they didn't know, is that it was a hot mess, but it still worked and it was still a lot of fun. And it's kind of like an unspoken like rite of passage in the proficiency world. Like the failed special person interview is something that you like have to go through in order for
any activity.
Yeah.
Like any strategy that you try, like I've tried things, dumpster fire. Like what is this? What is this? Of course you don't want your kids to like know that you're thinking that this is not how I expected this to go, but
it's we have to put it out there too that failure is such an important part of learning how to get better. And so like we'll just go ahead and put it out there that my best dumpster fire was when I had this wonderful, amazing student come up and volunteer to do a special person interview. And like the way a special person interview works, if you like haven't heard of it, is that you interview the student completely in the target language and you treat them like you're a talk show host. Like, I'm Ellen, you're the celebrity, and I'm going to completely interview you in the target language about things about you that are interesting to you. And you got a lot of supports, like Jade talked about. And they get treated like complete pamper on stage. And these hot messes in the background, like because she was quiet all the time every day, and like I had a class full of class clowns that were a lot of fun to teach, but like they were really, really loud. And I was up there like giving it her all, doing a great job, and everybody kept just being like, oh, I like that too, oh, I'm into that too. And I was like, hold on, this ain't about you. Like, what?
Yes, it's like I'm so glad that you're engaged, but
yeah, like, so I had to shut it down. So even though it was going well and everybody was understanding what was going on, there was so much blurting that wasn't in the TL, and I had to shut it down. And it was not a good moment because the poor girl was just really embarrassed, and the whole class was not proud of themselves either. And so that was my dumpster fire with it. So like sometimes it fails due to things that have nothing to do with CI. Sometimes it has to do with management. But my proudest moment, which I blogged about too, is that I had students who failed my class, straight up failed it. Like, their grades were dumpster fires, failed my class. They volunteered to do a special person interview in front of the class with each other and did it completely in French, and they like didn't need any supports or anything. They just interviewed each other and they could do it completely in French with advanced questions. That's how well it works. It was the most powerful thing I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I was just sitting in the back like, the love is so real. And when I told my department about how cool it was and how powerful it was, it does kind of freak teachers out a little bit though, is that what if I make students scared? You know, what if I put them on the spot? So what kind of, do you have any suggestions for teachers about like how do I make sure that students aren't afraid of being put on the spot?
So you said how you call a student up to the front, or a student volunteers to come up to the front. Before I even think of asking for an actual special person that I'm going to use for a writing assignment to come up in front of the class or anything, we go through all the questions together. So they've already had practice and contact with those structures and the responses. So then it makes the students feel more comfortable to come up and participate in front of the class, because like they don't like public speaking. Like a lot of people don't like public speaking. I don't want to do it. Like they just don't want to do it. So that has helped so much with my students, making them comfortable. Like speaking Spanish is intimidating to them. Like they're like, I'm 14 years old. Like I want to speak English. Like this is new, and it terrifies them just as much as it terrifies the teachers to try something new and mess up. So like gotta kind of remember that everybody's afraid to mess up. So
yeah, even more powerful, and I think when we mess up in front of them is when they see that too, is that, you know, I'm learning something new too, and I'm not afraid to.
Well, let me tell you about my dumpster fire.
Yay!
And it was this year. So Extra in Espanol, the cheesy show that's made for language learners. So I wanted my students to have some listening practice, and we watched it together the first time, and they had comprehension questions for each section, and we went through each section together. But I think they were just so intimidated that the show was like in Spanish that their ears like closed up. So some of like I can't hear this, can't do this. But anyway, so they complain, it's too hard, no puedo. And at the end of class, I was like, so you understood? And they were all like, no. And I'm like, well, yes, you did, because you answered the question. So I was like, well, that sucked. So moving on, the next week, so Friday rolled around. Are we gonna watch Extra? You didn't like it. What are you talking about? You didn't even like it. So I didn't play it that Friday because it wasn't in my plan to do it. But I did it this Friday, and it was amazing. They understood, and I think it helped already that we had done like physical descriptions and personality descriptions, and they were following along well. One of the questions was, ¿de qué se encarga Pablo? And it was an episode about like clothes and like who picks what part for Sam, because Sam doesn't speak Spanish very well. But I asked them, ¿de qué se encarga Pablo? And they're like, se encarga de la parte, blah, blah, blah. And like, se encarga Ana. And they're like answering because they understand what I'm asking. And I'm like, oh my God, se encarga? Like, I don't even think I learned that in high school at all in my Spanish class. So.
Yeah. We don't even need to talk about the fact that it's a reflexive verb. Yeah, like, yay!
So it was like dumpster fire episode 1 to episode 2. They got it. Yes, they got it. Success. Victory is mine.
So cool. That is so cool.
Oh yeah.
So that's a game changer.
Oh,
That is a game changer for sure.
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So we definitely know about how you deal when things flop, and that is to just keep on trucking, to
Like,
keep on truck.
because
How do
like,
you plan to keep things going when we're kind of now that we're kind of in the thick of things, and
Mhm.
after kind of like the honeymoon phase has worn off, once we get to like October and November, and students start getting like tired of it? What kind of things you got in your tool belt that you think you're gonna
Uh,
use?
well, I love games. My kids always love, love, love games. Of course they do, but they don't realize that it's strategic and they're still learning while they're doing it. So I'm doing a lot of games. I'm playing Sace. They
Mhm.
love Sace.
That's a dice game, right?
Yes, it's the dice game where um, two students, one pencil, and both of them want to win. So
Yeah.
one person has the dice and they're rolling it trying to get Sace, and then the other person has the pencil and they're filling out their paper with, like, if it's labeling images or writing sentences or like translation from English to Spanish, trying to write as much as they can before that person rolls Sace. And then when they roll Sace, they snatch the pencil. They have to, like, it just goes back and forth. It gets so competitive. Like, I'm pretty sure my neighbor next door thinks we're crazy because it's like Sace so loud. So
Vicious.
I say, and then I have them do puzzles. Triangle puzzles are more challenging for them because they have to figure out which way to make it into a triangle. And I use images. I wish I had a picture to show or like something, a handout, but I don't. They're all at school. So I'm using puzzles. I'm using Quizlet Live, but the one that my kids like the most is GameKit.
I just discovered GimKit, and it's such a game changer.
Yes,
Those greedy little monkeys love to bet money.
yes. So GameKit is amazing.
And it's free, teachers. It's like if you already do Kahoot, it's like Kahoot on steroids. It's so
Yes.
much fun.
So all you have to do is create your account. You can only make 3 of your own set. Somebody's already made them, then you can just search like the title, like Spanish cognates or Spanish countries, and then use those as many times as you want. But GimKit is like Kahoot meets Quizlet Live, and it's like a blend. I don't even
It's
know.
Vegas. Like it's so
Yeah,
much
like the kids are trying to earn money, but they earn money for every question they answer correctly, and it's independent. So they don't have to depend on their classmates getting questions wrong. So if they don't know it, they lose money. So if they answer the question incorrectly, they lose money. But they're also like power ups, which is what gets them really excited because you can get power ups to get more money per question or to steal someone's money or to get insurance if you get questions wrong. So they're
Mhm.
really invested. And new this year, you can assign it for homework.
Ooh. Oh, I didn't know about that feature. No lo
Assign
sabía.
it for homework. You just create the classes. You can type your kids' names in, and you don't have to worry about names like Fart Fart Fest, like weird names. So you type their names in, and they just have to click on their name, and then it grades how well they did in practice. So yeah,
Yeah.
they love it. So we're gonna use it.
Yeah. Oh,
Switch
so
things up so they won't get bored though. So all the different types of games, always searching for new stuff that they can do.
oh, amazing. Well, I sure want to be a student in your class. It sounds like a lot of fun.
You should. You should come join us.
I definitely want to repeat high school. Let's do
Oh
it.
no, 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 no! Please don't send me back.
Yay! All right. Well, Jade, this was me encantó tanto. This was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing all the amazing things that you have. Where can teachers connect with you, and where can they find
So
all the goodies that you have for them for
I
target language?
I am on Instagram. It is La Secundaria _JAC. And I also have a blog. It's www.lasecundaria.org. And I'm on TPT. Just type in La Secundaria. I'm there.
Mm-hmm. And she has a lot of supports for special person interviews that you can use. Exactly all the supports that she's talking about. You can find them and use them.
Oh, yeah.
To make your activities even
I have
better.
and everything. So explanations of how I do it. So have to try it.
All the goodies. Yay. All right. Nos vemos, chica. Thank you so much again. We will see you later.
Con mucho gusto. Adiós, amiga.
Adiós. Ciao.